So
he clicked got it.
no, you don't have to got it. You presumably you have it, but you know you're being recorded. So
Okay, but the box is still up right in the middle of the.
Says got it.
Yeah,
Okay, click on it.
that's what I meant.
Okay.
Ignore the chiming. It's a scam on my phone.
Well, just pick up your phone and hang up.
I need to see who it is because it may be some editor that I don't have as a number.
Well, put your mute button on and answer the phone.
It's through. It wasn't an editor.
Okay. All right. We've only got a few people here right now. Gordon was there at the end of the time. Frank, when were you there?
Same time Gordon was, November 69, March 70.
Okay, Dan? Dan?
January 16. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hello.
Yes, I hear you. I hear you.
I got in country January 69, went to Tonlachon for a month and then transferred to Minton and was there till the end of March of 70.
Nice.
Yeah, I left in April 70.
I'm so proud of you. I'm gonna go to the class.
Okay.
Okay. So at Minton, Dan, what did you do at Minton?
What did I do at Minton?
Right.
Yeah, well, before I left Fort Bragg, we went through that O&I school for assistant O&I on the A teams. And so I guess that would have been my primary assignment.
So you were in Intel from January of 70, 69 rather.
Well, I was actually weapons up in Tonlachon for a short time.
Yeah. Okay. 369 to 4170 when they closed the camp. I have you down at Intel, and then prior to that,
The meeting.
Is that the meeting?
you're at Tonlachon, Bill.
Yeah.
I see you. I hear you. So you're here.
Okay.
Now. Okay. Let me.
I'm here.
Yeah, I see you there. Okay. So at 342, I have Daniel Courtney. All right. Well, I read this thing in here. All you guys are late people there. Let's see when Bill got there. When did you get there? Oh, I'm in the wrong. That's why I don't find you. I'm on the wrong team. Let's delete that. Okay, let me start over again and get a little bit organized. Okay, save. Okay, let's go back. 332. There we go. That makes a little bit more sense. That's why. There you are at 332. Okay. And then Bill, you were there in 68. So you're the earliest one we've got so far.
The earliest?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm gonna let you start out until somebody else comes up there and claims an earlier date. But from when you arrived at the camp, what are the things that you remember about being there?
One, I didn't know where in the hell I was. I just got on a helicopter from Benoit and flew out over some unmarked territory and ended up, started off at 334 where I was supposed to go, and they said no, and then sent me up to the B team, and the B team sent me to Minton 332. And I'm just going to take a guess. It was the nicest A team in Vietnam. When I got there in August 1968, the camp had been there for 3 years. It was totally built. We had creature comforts galore, and it was after Tet, so we had no enemy activity in the area. So I was only there for 3 months and went out on my patrols, but made no contact. So I had a peaceful 3 months, and it was a really nice place. So that's my impression of Camp Mintaw in the fall of 1968.
The story is that the Seabees built the camp originally, and it was a show off. This is what we can do. That's my understanding of the history of it. Had a fireplace in the team room. Thank God we had that. I mean, the temperatures were just plummeting. No, we actually had a fireplace in the team room.
Well, anyway, I really liked Camp Minton. I got lucky my entire tour in Vietnam.
Call from anonymous. Call
You
from
go ahead and
anonymous.
talk while I handle this phone call.
Well, that was it. It was just a nice place and good people.
We added on to the team house after you left, and we went down to the other end of the rubber plantation where that old mansion was. Stole some bricks and some nice oak doors and built an L-shaped bar on the side of the team house. It was
remember the
a
bar.
pretty comfortable place.
There was one wall in the team house, had a high ceiling, and it was completely covered with Playboy pinups. The entire wall. I don't know if you remember that.
Well, I think our LLDB soldiers stole a lot of those pinups, didn't they? Reaching through the screen.
Probably.
Yeah.
All right, going back here is kind of an interesting piece. One of the first teams that went to Minton, actually it wasn't one of the first, but it was about the third TDY team in 1963. The commander of that team was Donald Martin. He'd already earned the nickname of Spaceman, and I believe that he was your B team commander when some of you were there. The CB team in January to February of '64 built that camp at that time. So yes, that information was correct.
Steve, I have a question. How did you come by doing this, and how were you able to accumulate all of this information about all of us soldiers?
It's the same thing that Dan did as an intel analyst. One little piece of information put together in the database, and you build on it.
Yeah, well,
So-
you did a great job. Thank you.
Well, it started out with the Green Beret magazines. About 1988, Gordon and I had a thing here in Houston where we were having a Vietnam veteran stand down. And we had a hospitality suite at one of the hotels, and I brought a couple of the magazines I had to the hotel. And everybody said, "Oh, I didn't know my picture was here." And I said, "You mean 20 years later, nobody's gone putting them all together and made them available?" No, no.
That was early 80s, right?
Late 80s,
Yeah.
1988.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly. Steve and I were almost neighbors. And I brought in a few. I had like 3 or 4 of the magazines of the issues. And I brought them in and I suggested to Steve, I said, is there a set of these somewhere, in somebody's museum or in their documentation? We could get them. I bet we could reprint these things. And I think you checked and found out that 3 issues were sent to JFK Center every month. And then you went there and found out that there were a lot of them were missing. Guys probably grabbed them because their picture was in it. So we got together, and of course, Steve was the doer guy. I was just one with ideas on printing, collecting them all and printing the whole thing, all the volumes. If you don't have it, even though it's about camps that you never heard of or weren't there, it's really, really interesting history for anybody that was in SF. Highly recommend buying them from Steve if you don't have them.
Yeah.
They're in year volumes like this with the covers, pictures of the covers.
Yeah. What I did do, however, was I put an index into it. So it had 6,000 names, and people thought I knew something. They would say, "Do you know who the guy who did this was?" I said, "No, but send me all the pieces of paper under your bed, and I will try to figure it out." And ultimately they did. I ended up with lots of filing cabinets, lots of paper. And I built this list up that's on my website. So when it came to doing this, I figured this is the last time I have to go over the list and update it. I'm getting too old for this shit.
Yeah.
And but with COVID-19, a lot of you guys have learned, perhaps imperfectly, in case of Frank and Gordon, how to use Zoom. And therefore, when I do a camp now, at the end of my doing the camp, I hold a Zoom session when I found all the people I could find. Now, I don't know why Bill Slatter Schachter is not getting his microphone on, but he's trying to. So we'll see if he manages to get in here. There should be a lot more people coming in. I don't know. But anyway, that's the answer, the long answer to your question of how I got this together. And the Green Bread magazines was a starting point for the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so thank you for doing it.
Oh, you're quite welcome. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Next week, I do the B-34 camps. And those will be the last camps in 3 Corps that need to be done. So then I move on to 4 Corps, 22 camps in 4 Corps, and that will do the whole country. So it's been about 8 months, 6 to 8 months now. But I've got some really good history recorded. And a lot of people have talked to people they haven't seen or talked to in 50 years. So that's working out. That works out pretty well.
Well, you guys are the first former Green Berets I've talked to in more than 50 years, other than a phone call or two. When I went to Vietnam, I got on a plane by myself and flew to Cam Ranh Bay, got a ride out to Nha Trang, took a flight to Bien Hoa, got an assignment, went out on my A-team for 3 months. And I got reassigned to A Company, the headquarters in supply. I didn't really get to know too many people there. And when I left Vietnam, I left by myself. Basically, in Iowa, there's very few there are very few former Green Berets around. At least I never met any. So it's been 50 some years since I've talked to anybody. It's kind of interesting.
Well, that's not an unusual story. We were kind of loners going there, kind of loners coming back, and loners
Yeah.
by ourselves.
Yeah.
Bill, welcome, Bill. You finally got your microphone working. Now get your camera going.
Yeah, well, good, because the tests work and I'm on my phone. I'm driving from
Okay.
Atlanta. Just got through with the Atlanta History Center and driving to Charlotte. So I got to figure out where the phone is.
Well, your phone connection is doing well. So you're not going to get a camera very well when you're driving along.
Okay, well, my wife is driving. I
Oh,
can't
your
do
wife
both.
is driving. That's good. So are you actually on a phone or on an iPhone?
I'm on an Android.
An Android. Are you
Yeah.
using Zoom? I guess
Yes.
you are. But does the Android have a full-featured Zoom on it?
Yeah, I tested fine.
Okay.
Are you in full Zoom?
So,
Well, I'll let you puzzle that out while we
Okay.
continue on here.
okay.
The odd thing is that all of us in isolation were not aware of who else was out there. Gordon lived here in Houston, and we didn't find each other until about 1988. I've been here since 1980.
What'd you do?
Another fellow was in my zip code. I didn't find him. In fact, he was the CEO of Chanton. I didn't find him until, a few years ago. He just passed away this year. Chanton was the camp that became Chilin, the next camp we're doing. When you say you don't know anybody else around you, you'd be surprised, because, for example, in Iowa, there was a fellow over there, also Bill Bradley. He was the mayor of one town in Iowa.
Oh,
He was SF. So the likelihood of there being somebody pretty near to you is very high that was in this group.
well, I have a question for Captain Schachter.
Yes.
I went through the list of people and kind of wrote down your names and when you were assigned. And I see that you were a captain from August 1967 to December 1967. Is that correct?
Yeah, I got promoted actually in June of '67.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I want to ask you a question. One of the things I kind of learned just by internet was that you had Stephen Geist working
Yes.
for you. Do you
Yes.
remember him?
Oh, absolutely.
He was missing in action. He and a lieutenant, a pilot from one of the divisions came up and went on a recon trip north towards Cambodia. Were never seen or heard from again. So I just thought I'd bring that up and see if you remember anything about that.
Oh, I remember a lot because I sent them up on the fact we were doing planning a heliborne operation, and we picked an LZ through Map Recon. He was new on the team, and I wanted him to look at the area, see if we could fit the slicks in. He was new at the team, maybe a week, and the up sergeant selected him to go on that mission. And then I wanted the FAC to fly him around the AO so he could take a look. So they went up. Lynn Huddleston was the pilot.
Yeah.
And other than communications fairly soon, where he asked about people in the field, locals, never heard from him again. And there's an incredible follow-up after that. because in 1997 or 8, Steve Sherman called me and told me that Geist's sister-in-law wanted to talk to me. Do you remember Stephen doing that?
Yes.
Okay. And so I talked to her, and she told me that the family couldn't understand why Geist had gone on that mission, which really struck me because what it told me is that they doubted this story. And in fact, I had called his father, when I got back to the States and explained everything. And I told her that, sorry, but I mean, he's dead. I mean, 30 years have gone by. She then had me contact the folks at the Pentagon that did the coordination. And for a number of years, I was in contact with these folks. And then the strangest thing happened. She had some people that she knew, military people, that did a PowerPoint presentation on Stephen, which you can look up today under Stephen Geist. And in this presentation, it's at 10:30 that morning, Huddleston had spoken to the air controllers and had given coordinates for where he was.
Really?
And I had never heard this information, and nobody told me about this. And I had gone up with the folks searching. I'd gone with the helicopter crews searching. We did that for 3 days, and nobody mentioned this. And those coordinates, believe it or not, and I was shocked because I still had my operations map. In fact, I had framed it, and I went to look at the coordinates, and they were about 5 clicks from the camp. I was dumbstruck as to why I had never heard this before, because obviously, if we had known that, we would have gone out searching right then and there on the ground. So I did have communications with the folks at the Pentagon. And on one trip I took to New York, I stopped at their offices, which were in Arlington. And I said to them, I don't understand how this never got communicated, these coordinates. And they couldn't answer me. And I said, could you contact the commander of his unit and find out about this stuff? But that never happened. In fact, having seen some stuff on History Channel where guys had gone searching, I came up with the idea that maybe I would go search for him. And I thought about doing it and doing something, a documentary. And I got a hold of a documentary film producer who was interested in doing this with me. And unfortunately, he said to me, we need $500,000 to fund this thing, but we can get the money back through sales and speeches and so on and so forth. But then I went on Google Earth and I Googled the area, and it was completely changed. I didn't recognize anything. Although we had a 4,500 long runway, it wasn't there any longer. The camp certainly wasn't there. And the town of Minton had expanded considerably. So that's the last I heard.
All right. I took 2 of those flights. That's one of the reasons I was interested. I did it twice. They were just routine recon missions. The
Right.
pilot from one of the divisions would come up, pick me up, we'd fly around for about an hour, and he'd leave me off and leave. Well, anyway, I was just interested. Thank you for the information.
Yeah, I hope that's helpful.
I shared a screen over here that Sam Seaton sent me about a black tie affair in Palm Springs where Stephen Geist's sister was there or was involved, and they had some discussion of these things. And apparently Seaton has had some further contact with his sister and some other family members as well. He's not on this meeting today, but he's at Tonglishan. We'll be at Tonglishan tomorrow, I guess.
Well, anybody interested from the Geist Family Association, I'm happy to talk to them, as you know.
You're right. Okay. Let's see. While I'm sharing the screen here, let me offer a couple other things. Let's see. Where is that? Well, I'll come back to that.
Okay.
There we are. Okay. Have you got this? Am I sharing the screen now with a map?
Yes.
You see it?
Anybody see that? That's a picture of the camp.
Yeah.
All right. That's too big. Let's go down a little smaller. Okay. So here is the camp.
Yes.
And this is the plantation.
Yes.
So, you're living comfortably next to a plantation that was donating a lot of money to the guys who were shooting at you.
Yeah, we heard about that.
So when you talk about how good things were at Mintom, Bill Braun, part of it was the fact that there are some accommodations that were being made.
I would not be surprised.
Did he mention the flush toilets and the indoor shower?
Yeah. Well, the LLGB commander definitely had his own little kingdom there.
Yes.
His office was about almost as big as our team room, and he had a desk, and it was all fancy decoration, a sofa. I went up there once, and they made it real clear that it was not something that would happen a lot to go into his office, into the throne room. And you definitely got the impression this guy owns this area.
I carried a knife for two reasons. One is to clean my fingernails, and two was to kill him if I had to.
That's practical.
I have a question. After when I was there, I left in December '67. Before I left, we built a TOC. It was quite amazing. I did not know that it could withstand anything in the way we built it, but I'm just curious if it was still there after December 1967.
This was Minton?
Yeah, Minton.
Well, I was there in
Well, here
November
we are.
70 to May, I'm sorry, 69 to May 70. And as far as I know, that's the TOC we used.
That's the
Right.
top right there at the top of it. That's Sergeant Bell and Captain Crow on top of the top.
Right, right.
And
I'm kind of vague on I was at Chi-Lin. I knew Chi-Lin like the palm of my hand. I oversaw rebuilding a lot of the bunkers, and we built a TOC there and a lot of stuff. But Minton, I didn't feel like a plank owner. And I just don't remember a lot of details of the layout or anything.
Well, we had an opening in the TOC that led up to a little OP.
Right.
And in
Remember
that,
that. I went up there twice.
yeah, in that little OP thing, we had a ammunition box. And when you lifted up the lid, there was a map of all the concentrations of the mortars.
Right.
And there was, I put a red light on top, hidden between the sandbags. And so you could plug in a light, that light, or you could plug in a light that shined on the little map we had. And I figured the light on top was to make sure that the aircraft, if we needed them, knew where the center of the camp was.
I guess I probably handled that map because I made a updated revision when I got there.
I don't know if you can see the map on this, but
I don't have a copy of it or anything, but
that's the TOC. And the map is on the wall.
yeah, we'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
Okay, the other question I really had was that the guy that ran the mortars, Vietnamese guy named Trang, and he ran the mortars. He had been trained in World War II by the Japanese and worked with the Vietnamese army. He was
I
quite
remember
good.
him well.
Yeah, really.
He came out to Chilean while I was still at Chilean. He came out there and I kind of became his assistant because we trained all the 60 millimeter, 81 and 4 deuce crews.
Right.
Ran them through complete refresher training. And this guy, he knew his business. He knew mortars.
Right. Well, that's interesting. Great. I'm glad to hear that he was surviving. You know, the 4 deuces there were not part of the TO&E.
Right. There were 4 of them.
Right. We had 4 81s and 4 deuces. And believe it or not, shortly after I arrived, we got a notice that we were going to have an IG inspection.
And had to turn them in.
Well, not only did I have the 4 deuces, we had about 5,000 or 6,000 rounds of ammunition, 50 caliber machine gun that wasn't part. I had extra M60s that I traded M1 carbines to helicopter pilots for.
Yeah,
And
I was doing that too.
And the IG inspector, a major, comes in with an E7 and starts his inspection. And about 45 minutes later, I go running up to him and I said, "Sir, we just got word that there's a North Vietnamese brigade or regiment in the area. We're expecting an imminent attack. I suggest you have your helicopter relocate and we'll call him in when you're finished." He said, "I have a better idea. I'm leaving." And that was the last we heard of him.
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. This is Bo McFadden. I just thought I'd connect in. I've got just a few minutes and thought I'd see what familiar faces I can pick up on in the picture. I see you, Gordon and Dan. Definitely recognize you two from Minh Thanh and Tonglashon also, or Chi Lin rather. But I'm going to have to drop off the call here in probably 5 or 10 minutes. I'm the kind of primary caregiver right now around the home.
I remember you and I ran a lot of operations together.
We did, and we had some scout dogs with us at Minh Thanh that came up from the south.
Yeah, we had
to help out.
First Division.
We were pounding around in the boonies quite a bit.
Yep. Yep. I think I took you on your first operation. I remember teaching you how we use the CAC code to call in our coordinates each night and that sort of stuff. That was at Chilean. And then we both wound up at Minh Thanh.
That was at Chilean. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Well, I remember the first operation, and there was Sergeant Gray, I think, was on that one too. And I just remember duck walking through the bamboo until
there were
ready
some
to
areas
drop.
of bamboo that were really bad.
Nasty along the river there, and that was the thing I remember.
Yeah. You know, I was with Captain John Horn, and we built Chilin. And in fact, when I reported into Special Forces headquarters in the Trang, I had gone through the PSYOPs course and was expecting to be a staff position. But when I arrived, the S1 said to me that the XO of the camp, it was Shantan at the time, shot himself in the foot, and you're his replacement. And I, before we could say, but I'm sorry, he said, and by the way, in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you guys are moving out and you're going to build the first design fighting camp. Good luck.
Bo, I know you have to go soon. I just, while you're on here, do you remember our two dogs? Scuffy and Tanglefoot.
You know, I don't really. I was remembering Claymore from another one of the camps, but I don't remember those two.
Those two, they were part of the team. I got a picture. I don't have it scanned. All my photographs are packed away in boxes, and I haven't been able to find them lately in prep for this. But I got a photograph of the two dogs. They were just mutts, but they were really cool. They were part of the team. I just wondered if guys remembered them.
Well, I'm sure that when they're all gone, they became part of the LLDB diet.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
the LLDB left when we did, and a first Cav Division company took over the camp.
Right.
So I always hoped that they took charge of the dogs, because the dogs were real friendly and really good buddies.
Is that what happened in 1970?
So I've got a question for Dan.
I'm here.
Huh.
I'm sorry, did I interrupted? No. So Dan, I'm remembering when you and I went out behind the camp, and there was a large pit back there where we would get rid of all of the captured ordnance and explode things and get them out of our hair. And we went out there one day and
Roger that.
you set it up, and that sucker went off just as planned, but it threw all of those little Chi-Com grenades up in the air, and they were going pop, 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 pop everywhere. And we got back, we drove back and drove into the camp. Everybody was suited up. They thought we were under attack, man. I think we got our ass chewed a little bit on that one.
Almost the exact same thing happened to me. We blew up stuff, and a 60mm WP round was blown into the camp from the airstrip, and only smoldered for a little while, but everybody was giving us unhappy looks when we came back into the camp. Damn Americans.
So I was always curious. I never looked into it, but when did they build that camp? It was pretty, Minton was pretty comfortable.
Oh, Minton, yeah. What we say goes back to 63 or 64.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Unlike Chilin, which the 18 quarters had burned down a couple months before I got there, and we were living in Connex containers temporarily.
Right. We had buried the 20-foot Connex containers and used them for our sleeping quarters once we, in part of building the camp.
This was Minton?
Yeah, no, this is Chilin. Yeah,
Chilin, yeah, because some of those containers were still there that had been in the fire, and they were warped. And we bulldozed a big pit and put a concrete floor in it, and built the walls and supports of timbers, and then we put a 4 sandbag thick roof on it. So that would have been in the summer of '69. I think when that
Minton was opened sometime in late '63.
Well, we talking about Chilin or Minton?
Minton.
Minton was '63, yeah.
Chilin's later this afternoon. It was opened by a team that included George Petrie.
I tell
And that,
Tell you what, gentlemen, I've got to drop off the,
I will, well, come back anytime. Because we'll be talking about this all.
yeah, you guys
We're gonna go from Minton to.
Yeah,
Chief.
try to come back.
have, all of the email addresses were in the invite. So man, if you got any pictures or thoughts, reach out.
You
Hey,
know,
Bo,
But
Will do.
you guys
you can leave your
take care.
camera going on and just turn the microphone off. And anytime you're free, come back and join the meeting. We'll be talking here first on Minton, and then we go to Chi Lin so all afternoon we're going to be here.
Can I speak to Bob?
All right,
Dr.
well, maybe
Bo?
if things,
Just put the volume off until you
if
come
things
back.
calm down, I will
Okay.
connect in.
Okay, hope you
Bye.
can. See you
I
guys.
hope so too.
Okay, Bill, you were starting to ask a question.
Well, that's okay.
Bill
Go ahead.
Brown. No,
I can't remember.
that was when we left before Bo moved out.
that was me,
That was you, okay.
Frank Cancellari.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I have a picture of Bo and I in the Michelin rubber plantation with the scout dog and his handler. I remember the handler's name was Brothers. Do you recall that?
I can't recall his name, but I really remember the dog. I think I went on 3 operations with him.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see that very well.
No, not very good.
Yeah, but that's Bo and myself and Brothers and the dog. And then I have a picture of Dan Courtney. Danny was out in the pit, and that's where he was exploding. They were getting rid of the Chi-Com mines that we had in the different ordnance and whatnot.
Look, I want to mention that aside from the website specialforcesbooks.com, I have another website, which is specialforcesphotos.com. You have to go there and use your whole name. Otherwise, I'm going to reject you as a Russian bot. Don't give me any little handle on it. But once I approve you based on your name, then you can go there and post pictures in an album. There's albums for each A-team in Vietnam. So you can post the pictures, you can write captions on them, and then somebody else can come by and say, I'm the third guy from the left. So that website has not been used very much, but I'm going to be encouraging it in the days to come. Well,
Could you post that website?
Specialforcesphotos.com as opposed to specialforcesbooks.com.
Right. Okay. I have a question for the Minton guys. We had a pet python named Greg. Did that
Gregory,
survive?
absolutely.
Absolutely.
I remember a python at Chi Lin, but not at Minton.
Ah,
And I got the
Yeah,
picture. I
well-
got a picture of little Joe, one of our medics, holding the snake at Chi Lin.
Maybe it was.
The snake at Menton was Gregory.
Gregory,
yeah. Yes.
I don't really remember one at Minton, but like I said, I just didn't. There's a lot of stuff I don't remember about Minton.
Yeah, the snake at
Gregory
Menton was
really
Gregory.
docile.
Yes.
Gregory was really docile unless he was hungry.
Oh, that's the way they are.
Yeah, I was gonna
And
say, aren't they all?
so it's time to clean Gregory's pen, and so somebody turned him loose in the team house. Sergeant Billy Bates came into the team house to get a cold drink, and Gregory was curled up around the refrigerator. He saw Gregory and went screaming out the door, clear past the moats and all the security wire before he got himself stopped. And less than a week, I would say, after that incident, him and Sergeant Kovalenko got rip-roaring drunk and went out and put about 100 rounds in Gregory.
Oh,
That was the end of Gregory.
No.
Bummer.
Yeah, we used to feed
Yeah.
Greg ducks.
Ducks or
The,
chickens, right?
We've
Yeah.
been talking about the scout dog handler. What I remember about him is he was drunk all the time in
Yeah,
camp.
exactly. You're right.
He'd sat there at that bar
Yeah.
and put away beer after beer. And then the Daiwi told me that he's going with you on your operation. And I said, I don't want him. He said, no, you got to take him. He'll be okay. And I said, what do you mean he'll be okay? You know? And we went out and I was really reluctant. And what he did that first morning, he'd drink a beer and that was the end of it. He didn't touch anything alcoholic the entire operation. But that night when we got back in, he was drunk again.
What was his name?
Well, he
I
had,
can't remember his name. Somebody did.
His name was Brothers.
most of us had rice in our rucksack, and that guy had hot beer in his. I don't know if he ever ate solid food.
Well, I never
I
saw him
remember
drink
that.
on the operation. He didn't drink it, and he didn't appear to be soused or anything. So I think he was okay on ops.
He wouldn't get drunk on operations, but he
Right.
definitely had beer at whatever
Oh, yeah.
temperature happened to be.
Do you remember us driving with a 3/4 ton, a Jeep and a deuce and a half, driving all the way to B-33 from Minton
Yep.
without authorization? So we could, and then we went up to the big American base and
Yeah,
bought a
yeah.
pallet of beer for the CIDG.
Yep.
Well, we got yelled at the B team. We come walking in wearing taggers, and they were jealous because they couldn't wear taggers. And they said, "This isn't an authorized operation. You can't be out here." Well, what are we going to do? We bought a pallet of beer. We're taking it home.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, we must have been crazy going through other AOs. We had no control. We had no authorization. We just took back roads from Minton to Long Bend, where the B team was.
You drove from Minton to Long Bend?
Yep.
Oh, my God.
And back in the same day. We went up to past Minton was this big American camp. There was a brigade from the 1st Cav and a brigade from the 1st Division. Not Quanaloy. Maybe it was Quanaloy.
Yeah.
Big American base camp. Next.
Did my photo come up?
Yes, you're here now.
Okay, great.
And you're safely wearing your seatbelt. Good.
Yeah.
What were the name of the two dogs?
At Chelan,
No, at Minton.
the only dog we had at Minton that I remember
was
was
it?
this small black dog
Yeah.
named Nigger, who the team sergeant, who was black, named. And it had pups, and the CIDG guys were interested in those pups. We had to put a guard on them.
Well, they eventually got them.
Yeah.
We discovered we ate those pups at a camp celebration.
Well, at least
If
they
it's
went
the
to a
same
good
letter I
cause.
remember.
Do I rate
had a-
Greg as KIA or died non-hostile?
Yeah, we had a dog, a female that was called Pussy. You remember Pussy?
I don't
A German
remember that
Shepherd
one.
female.
Yep.
We forced her to breed one of the scout dogs, and we got 9 pups.
When was that?
Well,
Roughly.
that would have been, I claimed one of the pups. That would have been late in 69 or maybe even early 70, because that pup was just barely weaned when I was ready to come home, and I looked into taking him home, and it was just cost prohibitive to do that. And
Yeah.
so the LLDB captain claimed him. That's the last I saw of him.
Yeah.
Was Pussy was there in 1968.
Pussy was?
Yeah. The story I was told is that a Pussy was obtained by one of the prior NCOs prior to 1968. And he taught Pussy to bark at any sidge. So,
Exactly.
yeah, I don't know if you remember
She
that.
was good at it too.
Yeah,
She was very good at early warning systems.
yeah.
Any non-US military personnel, basically.
That would have had to been in '69 then, because the dog I remember it had puppies. I don't know.
Well, there was a black dog out there that would bed down in the mortar pit behind the team house. Is that the same dog?
That could be the one. I know we had one. This dog was, and I can't remember if it was the black one, but we had a dog that got wounded several times. Some lieutenant was clearing a 45, pulled the slide back and let it slam forward, then pulled the trigger and shot the dog. And it survived. And then one day we heard a grenade go off out in the wire. We had booby trap grenades out there. And a couple hours later, the dog comes crawling into the camp bleeding. It set off a tripwire grenade. It had a rough life.
I got a question. I replaced Gary Hostler, who went to became the S3 of the B team under Ronnie Mendoza. And did any of you have any interaction with Gary?
Was that Minton or Chilean?
Yeah, he went up to the B team. I replaced him. He was a good guy. I don't know whatever happened to him.
I don't really know any of the staff at the B team.
Hostler was earlier. He was there at 67. He's deceased now. And surprisingly, with the exception of the guy who was the first PCS commander, every commander between Blackstone, the first one, and you, the Bill Schachter, every one of them is deceased. And the two after you are deceased. 1, 2, 3 after, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 people after you. And I can't get Donald Falls to answer the phone. He was the guy who sat in there at the end. But there's only 3 surviving commanders from Minton. What did you do? You know, that's not what happens in the other camps. Most of the time, the commanders are still around.
They were assessed by the NCOs and found wanting.
That's right.
Well, that's a surprising result on camp commanders here for Minton. Blackstone.
I was surprised to read your list, Minton personnel, and see that Captain Zimmerman and Captain Callahan were both deceased. Glad to see Lieutenant Cancelliere is still around. Louis Lopez, but there were some, I guess I shouldn't be surprised considering how old they're getting, gents, but it did surprise me.
Who was the first captains you named off?
Blackstone.
Zimmerman.
No, Blackstone was the first PCS commander.
Okay, then
He's
give me
still
some more.
alive.
Who?
He's Anthony Blackstone is still alive. He
Okay,
just
and then there was somebody else he said was deceased.
Zimmerman he was talking about.
And there was another name.
That was much later.
Callahan.
Callahan was the CO at Minton, and he had been an A-team commander in, I think I was in his A-team in the 7th group before Vietnam. And he showed up over there after I was already there. I didn't think much of them.
Captain Harry Zimmerman
Towards
was
the
one
end
of
of my
the,
tour.
who remembers Harry Zimmerman? He was a great character. I
Yeah.
knew him.
Captain Zimmerman.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
had-
who was CO when I first got there.
Yeah, he had probably 4 or 5 or 6 different jobs the year he was there. He was quite a guy. I remember him pretty well.
How about Lieutenant Carmack, who replaced me as CO at Minton in December '67? Anybody ever run into him?
No,
No. Okay.
Callahan was the CO when I went to Minton in 69.
yeah, because he was already there when I got there in
Yeah.
November '69.
And Dan Courtney, the last thing I remember about you was Freddie Myers pulling shrapnel out of your butt from grenades that we were fishing down at the stream on.
I thought Courtney was the
That's,
one hitting the butt with a grenade fragment.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm sorry.
We were,
Yeah, I remember that. We took a whole case of M67s and threw every one of them into this river.
yeah,
And they were going off like, we were seeing how many we could get to go off at the same time. And Court went down to the edge of the water and threw
Yeah.
one in, turned around to run back up this ravine that was covered and got hit in the butt
yeah.
with a fragment.
Well,
And we were gonna put him
qualify
in.
that.
We were going to put him in for the Purple Heart, but he denied it.
Oh, that
He
was
didn't like the idea of getting hit in the back and then put a Purple Heart in, you know, why were you hit in the back?
That was about the first exposure we had to the new grenades, the baseball shaped grenades, and my throwing technique centered on the older model. And when I released that
Oh yeah,
round
blame
grenade,
it on the
didn't go where
weapon.
it's supposed to.
Yeah, I remember that real. I can remember that scene, you jumping with your hand on your butt.
Yeah, that was one of the most prolific things I remember about Minton.
Well, the CIDG liked those fish.
Yes, they
Americans
did.
didn't seem
Yeah, we
to
had
like
a bunch of
Yeah,
kids down
they
there.
jump in and gather them as soon as a couple would go off.
I remember some, we couldn't get them out of the water in time because they got all excited and were
Yeah.
running back and forth, and the concussion hit them. No fragments, but the water concussion,
Yeah.
they came staggering out crying. Yeah, I remember there was a bridge there and we'd gone down, we
Yeah.
made it an excuse to go down and check the bridge.
Right.
And I think we got that case of grenades came in on a chopper and somebody left it sitting there inside the team house or someplace around there. And so we said, well, we're going to go down. I said, well, let's just take these grenades in case we get in a firefight. And we did. We got a grenade firefight with no opposition.
We unloaded a lot of 30 cal rounds in that little stream also. That 30
Yeah, we had
cal
that-
was mounted on the back of that
Yeah,
Jeep.
we had a 30 cal. I got a picture with, you can see that Jeep in the background. The machine gun and the pedestal mounts there, it's blurry, but you can tell what it is.
Yeah. Who was it? Anybody remember?
I have a question.
Your voice broke up.
I have a question, and that is, Minton was composed of 3 companies of Cambodians and 1 Vietnamese company and a
Yeah, we had a combat recon.
was that
platoon.
still the sorry?
It seems like there were only 3 companies is what I can remember, plus a combat
There was-
recon platoon.
You know, one the,
What I remember
the
was four,
Vietnamese-
and about
the
two
Vietnamese
Vietnamese
company-
and two Cambodians.
Yeah,
This
that's
was
what
what,
I-
Minton?
And
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
the Vietnamese company we loaned to Thanh Shan. And when Thanh Shan got attacked, they attacked through the Vietnamese company, and that they got devastated. They lost about 25, and I don't know if they were ever reconstituted. I doubt it, but so anyway, that's what happened with them.
I kind of remember that, but yeah, I don't know what happened to them either. I remember when I got to Minton that 2 or 3 guys had come back, and one of them was an officer, I guess the XO or the capo. They'd come back from the Delta region. They'd gone down there on a recruiting campaign to recruit more
Right.
Cambodians. So I guess maybe those were, and they had come back, and of course they didn't have the troops with them because they went off to basic, but they had recruited some, and that may have been for that Cambodian company that got beat up.
Yeah. You know, the Cambodians belong to a political organization called Khmer Sarai,
Yeah, very,
Right.
as opposed to the bad guys there, and
Khmer Rouge.
Khmer Rouge,
Khmer
yeah.
Rouge.
And they
Didn't come till later, really. It's the KKK was the other faction of the Cambodians.
yeah, I had them one day at Chi Lin, the CO and some other top dogs in the company. It's a company that I always tried to go with on operations. Our Cambodian company, which was Company 333, was really good, and I liked going with them. And one day, I guess they trusted me. They invited me in a hooch with some beer and rice wine, and they explained in English through Ringo, my interpreter, the whole KKK plan, how they were going to first defeat the common enemy, the VC, and then take over the Delta region for an independent Cambodia. Not part of the main Cambodia, but the, what they call it? They had a name for it.
Lower Cambodia.
Yeah, I was trying to think of the
That's what the KKK.
Cambodian name for it, but they told me their whole plan. They were going to defeat the VC, and they expected, because we were supporting them, that the Americans would support them instead of the Vietnamese.
Well, the Cambodians were sort of off on that, because when they have 5 million Cambodians and 50 million Vietnamese, seems like an odd balance to try to.
Yeah, but that was their goal. You know, it was wish list, I
The
guess.
person you're talking about is a guy by the name of Sun Nak Tan. He was the head of the Khmer Sarai at that time. But Gordon, sometime you remind me, there's a fellow here in Houston by the name of Tan Tak, who is his lieutenant, and worked closely with him 69 and 70, and is very active in the Cambodian community here. So we'll talk about. He lives here. We'll get him.
Yeah, yeah.
Look, Dan, when you first
Yes.
at Minton, about April, you ended up getting a Bronze Star with me, but there seemed to be a whole bunch of awards that happened just about that time in April. What was going on? That was unusual action for the history of Minton.
We were running a lot of operations OPCON to the 1st Division and 1st Cav. We ran operations with 11th ACR, and
Yeah, I was on some of those.
we managed to stay busy. We had a lot of contacts.
That seemed out of keeping with what everybody else had been saying, and it's also out of keeping with the general history of the camp. There were very few Valor Awards except in that period of early '69.
Yeah, we'd run operations with the leg units, and they'd support us, and we'd kind of run coordinated operation with them, and we managed to find some work to do.
Was this in the plantation or outside of the plantation?
Outside.
Outside. Yeah.
This, they,
Yep, outside.
we would we'd usually get inserted by helicopter somewhere. Most of the time I didn't know where we were.
Yeah.
Most of the time I didn't even know where north was.
Well, in March '69, Luis Lopez got a Silver Star. March 19th. April 1st, you got a Bronze Star for Valor. April 10th, Carter Stevens got a Silver Star. And April 18th through the 10th through the 11th, Lopez got a Bronze Star with V. Posey got a Silver Star from the 23rd to the 24th of April. And Zimmerman got an Archon with V, but now we're getting into May. So during that time, there's a flurry of awards that never happened. There were a couple of soldiers' medals that came about at another time. But this one is Valor Awards. That was all of a sudden just that April period of time, April '69.
Well, that's right when I left, so I didn't catch any of that.
The soldiers' medals were Terry Tornow and Harry Zimmerman around the beginning of, on the 2nd of January of '69.
I gave that award to Terry Tornow.
Okay, what was the occasion?
If I remember exactly, we had an inspection by some senior NCOs from the train, and they came down, and this would be about October of 1968, and a terrible storm hit the camp, and apparently some lightning hit the fuel dump, and a couple of the 55-gallon drums exploded and were on fire. I didn't know it, but Terry Tornow, he ran out and he extinguished the fire all by himself, with the possibility that it could spread and just, blow the hell out of the area. So he came back in and told me what he did. So I put him in for the Soldier's Medal, and he got it.
Well, the date of action is January 2nd of '69, and Zimmerman got one the same day.
Okay, well, the action would have been the fall of '68, because I was only there for 3 months. So
Now, the date of action says January 2nd.
okay.
So, anyway, how many people were? Anybody there at the closing of the camp?
I just missed the closing of the camp because my tour was up and I got sent to the B team. And I got sent to the B team, something to do with aircraft availability. I got sent to the B team like a week earlier than it was originally planned. So, take the flight while you can, and I wound up spending a week or so at the B team.
Yeah, and
That would have been April '70.
Yeah, and I got sent out to Tonlachon after they had that incident. So I must have missed it by just a couple weeks, 3 weeks maybe.
Yeah.
On April 30th, 1970, the camp was converted to Rough Pup. So that's a specific date.
Yeah, I was kind of the tour guide for the MAC-V advisory team, MTT something, a mobile training team, and it was a captain and 2 NCOs, and they brought a Jeep, and I guided them around the camp and in the town, and you know, like you need to take this canvas top off your Jeep because it's a death trap and that kind of stuff. And I remember those guys coming in and they were going to take over, but that's when I had to leave a few days early, and I extended an extra month so I could be there for the closing. And, but they wound up flying me out early anyway.
Was there a significant rough puff organization at the time, or did they just take the CIDG?
They took the CIDG and converted it to a rough puff battalion.
Okay.
That's what they did with most of those ones that were converted. I mean, some were converted to Mike forces, or they took Mike forces and they became rough puffs.
Well, some became border rangers.
Right, that was the Mike forces.
No,
Mostly.
those are some camps in hotter spots.
Yeah, there were camps that got that status.
Yeah. But
And it was a paper status. They didn't do anything special for them, you know. They went out and give some half-ass training and stuff like that.
Oh, you'd be surprised what happened to those camps.
Oh, I'm sure there were a lot of different things that happened.
We did one of the yellow books here that we've done.
Yeah.
And have an article in the 73 book about what happened to each of the camps. Now, the locked in was rendered ineffective as of April of 72, but it was turned over in 1970. The fact that it survived for 2 years before it was considered to be ineffective, that's something else. But Tanmashan lasted until April 11th of 74 and underwent an extensive siege for several months before they E&E'd out of the camp. Bintan and Chilin, did not convert.
Chilin closed down, after the first cav left, and during the Easter offensive, it was arc lighted. So there's not much left of it. Apparently NVA had occupied it, so they arc lighted it.
Oh.
I got an incident at Minton that I remember. It was probably early in 70. I left in April, so it was sometime in there. We were sitting in the team room, in the team house, and we heard a burst of fire. I said, oh, somebody dropped their rifle. Well, a few minutes later, some SIDS came running into the team house going, Boxy, Boxy. And somebody had been apparently wounded. So we went to one of the Cambodian barracks, and there was a dead guy laying face down on the floor. And it had taken almost a whole 20-round magazine right in the face from like 6 feet. And the story is that two of the Cambodian platoon leaders were fighting over this girl. They both thought of her as their girlfriend, and they got drunk and they had a fight, and they separated them, but one of them went looking for the other one. They both went looking for each other at the same time. Somebody took the rifle away from one guy, but no one took it away from the other guy. And they met in a barracks. They came through the side doors, and the guy opened, and the company commander grabbed the unarmed guy, and the armed guy put a 20-round magazine into his head. And there were brains all over the place, and dogs are running around snarfing it up.
He put it in the head of the guy he was fighting with, or in the head of the company commander?
The guy he was fighting with. And the company commander, his head was right beside him. He was gripping him, he was holding him. And he wasn't hit with any bullets. He was hit with skull fragments, but not a single bullet touched him. It was that tight of a pretty good tight group, shot group. And the guy ran off and got in one of the big corner bunkers where we had all kinds of ammo, including laws stored, and he wasn't coming out. And we thought we were going to have to go in there. And said we were going to go in there and shoot the guy out. And then said, no, let them do it. We're not going to do it. But the LLDB talked them out, and they called the National Police Field Force. And some hours later, they showed up and put handcuffs on the guy and took him into custody. And the last we heard, he got some prison term for murder.
I'm gonna stop over here.
Dan?
I don't know if anyone else remembers that.
I remember more than one of those incidents. I got the impression that those Vietnamese, and if they got into an argument, they didn't believe in fist fights. They thought shooting each other was a more expedient idea.
Well, like I said, this
we
was
had
right before I
probably
left.
2 or
So
3 of those.
yeah, well, that probably so. And I felt when I went on an operation, and I was going on a bunch of them then. I did 15 days in a row on one time, and it seemed like there was stuff going on in the camp and no one told me. You were out in the boonies, come back in, change clothes, fill up your PRI packages and go back out. So there's a lot of those things I may not have heard of.
Dan, in December 15th, 69, you got your second Bronze Star for Valor. So you got one at the beginning of your tour, one toward the end of your tour. That was the last Valor Award I have for this camp. What was that about?
Really? Well, that was we were engaged with a NBA unit, and they were in those bunkers that they were so good at building, and we were pinned down, and it was about a 2 or 3 day struggle, I guess. I don't recall that I did anything anybody else didn't do, but anyway, the Bronze Star showed up eventually. Colonel George S. Patton Jr. awarded it to me.
A couple of days before that, Sergeant Bates got a Silver Star on December 6th. And you guys were
I
talking.
didn't remember that.
You were talking about Bates before.
Yeah.
He also got wounded on that day. Yeah.
I didn't remember the Silver Star.
I got what surprised me was like a year after Vietnam, I was out of the Army and had a job as a land surveyor, and I get a letter and it awarded me the Air Medal. And that was a total surprise. I don't even know what for.
That, as I remember, that you had to log your hours.
Yeah, you had to have 24
You were
hours.
interested in that.
And I did log my hours.
Yeah,
I remember hearing about some
but
Go ahead.
I never did log the hours, but we spent a lot of hours in the air on a helicopter. And
We did.
I think it took 25 hours or something like that.
24
I never
hours.
did pursue that.
Yeah,
Huh?
it was 24 hours.
24?
Yeah, and the way it worked was if you did a support mission, like fly the work chopper from the B team to the C team or just routine flying, you got 15 minutes time regardless of how long the flight was. And if it was a support mission, like a recon or carrying troops, you got 30 minutes credit regardless of the flight. And if it would involve combat, like assault troops going in or fire support or whatever, you got an hour. So it was kind of artificial. But that was how the Army worked, determine how they were going to award it. Does anyone remember an E7 at Minton, late 69, named Norton?
Yeah,
He was a team
Charles V.
sergeant.
Norton.
yeah, I remember him.
I talked
He
to
was a
him.
pretty good guy. I liked him.
I talked to him a couple of days ago, and he gave me an email that was wrong, and I haven't been able to get him back up yet. but he's alive and well.
Wow. Got him surprised. He was trying to recruit. He wanted a couple guys in the team that he was going to retire before long. And he wanted to go to South Carolina, someplace where there was a seaport, and he was going to be involved with some kind of, cargo trucks. And I think what the deal was, they were stealing stuff out of cargo trucks, and the mafia and the mob truck drivers, the union truck drivers were involved in this somehow. He had some relative that was doing this. I said, I don't think I want to do that. I'm surprised he's not in prison.
He lives in Walnut Grove, North Carolina.
Where?
Walnut Grove.
I saw that Mr. Sherman couldn't contact Sergeant Norton. I wondered if that was because he's in prison. I got the same offer as you're talking about. He was the NCOIC of the National Guard Armory in Savannah, and he had time to work part-time down as a stevedore on the deck.
That's what it was. I think he talked to you and me at the same time.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I de-roast before him. When he came back to the world, I lived in the northeast corner of Oregon, and he detoured up to my hometown to stay with me a couple days and try to convince me to come to Savannah, but I just didn't have it in me.
Yeah, that's what he was doing. But,
Yeah,
I remember. I forgot that you were from. Where were you born in Oregon?
Well, I was born in LeGrand. I spent all my time in Wallowa County, which is the very northeast corner of Oregon.
Okay, northeast. Yeah, I'd forgotten that I was born in Oregon, in Seaside, up in the northwest, and I've never been back since. Left there when I was about 3 years old and wound up in Texas.
And Walnut
I've
Cove is
lived
not
in
too
East
far from me.
Oregon my entire life.
Nothing wrong with that.
Walnut Cove, South Carolina is just above Myrtle Beach.
Oh. Got you.
Beautiful South Kakalaki.
Yep, been there. Trying to think what else, other characters that were in the camp, but I can't. I guess all of us were characters.
Yeah, no, Norton is definitely in jail. It's just that he gave me the wrong email and he won't answer the phone now anymore.
Well, speaking of characters, we had two Hispanic NCOs back in the fall of '68. Al Terrazas and Camo and Pedro Vasquez and Intel. They both spoke Spanish. They were both from Texas, and they liked going out on the 5-day patrols together. So we allowed that, fine. They wanted to go. But what they would do is when they came back in on their 5th day, they would get reasonably drunk, and they both played the guitar. So they would get on the radio and start serenading all the other A teams for the evening. So that was just one story.
Yeah. SF guys are multi-talented.
Well, Pedro, I was told that Pedro, it was an E6 that he got into. I guess the Special Forces has a program that lets you study to get bilingual PhDs. And Pedro, I was told, got a PhD in Spanish and English education or something. So that's it.
He didn't show up today, but his email's on your list.
I saw, that's what, I've got his name down as being on there.
But Terrazas, as far as I know, is still alive, but I haven't been able to get him to answer his telephone.
I had some Facebook messaging with him. So, yeah, he spent 30 years in SF.
Yeah, my
So,
abilities on social media are limited.
yeah, me too.
Got to be a way of contacting people, but I can find out that they do post on Facebook, but I have no idea of how to get them to answer me.
Yeah, it's, people have different habits, they don't, they look at their email twice a year. It's kind of hard to get hold of some people.
Speaking of unusual people, did any of you ever meet Colonel Francis X. Kelly?
No.
Yes.
No,
And his nickname was Splash because he would only do water jumps.
That was in Okinawa. We got
I jumped with a National Guard Pathfinder detachment that was in the Virgin Islands. They had no drop zones other than water drop zones. These guys never jumped on land.
Really?
Except when they would go to their annual training once a year. They would go to Fort Benning for Pathfinder refresher training, and they would make a couple ground jumps, and they said they were terrified to do it because all they did was water jumps.
Kelly was
Government subsidized sport parachute club.
Kelly was from the Bronx. And when I met him, he realizing and seeing that I came from New York, he starts throwing Yiddish at me, which you may not know, but Yiddish is a combination of Hebrew and German.
Right.
Very common in New York City, So we had a funny bit between us when he threw the Yiddish at me.
Yeah.
I was born in the Bronx.
Oh, all right. There you go.
We won't hold it against you.
Left at age 5.
Story goes that Colin Powell, when he went to meet the Prime Minister of Israel or whoever, spoke to him in Yiddish because he learned Yiddish working as a teenager in New York.
And Colin Powell was from the Bronx.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We got kind of a quiet moment here. Steve, can I show him my Vietnam slang book?
Go ahead.
See if I can. I'm probably not going to be able to do it. It's got too much glare on it.
Back up.
Anyway, it's grunt slang in Vietnam. And it's published by, you can get it on Amazon. And it's not just a Vietnam slang book. It talks about like Saigon tea, and it tells how the girls worked and how they did their thing, It explains where the slang came from. And you might find it interesting. It's got a lot of black humor in it, and it's got it's probably the most complete Vietnamese Pidgin English dictionary available. Besides just all the routine GI bullshit. But it's called Grunt Slang in Vietnam, if you're interested. It's available on Amazon. You can get it in Kindle if you don't want to buy a hardback book. I had a lot of fun researching it.
Did any of you get, when you were there, it was very peaceful around Menton, but about once a month, apparently a local force VC group would visit the village. Did any of you experience that?
Other than
Yes.
just hearing that they had visited, that's all.
Well,
That was pretty routine. It was the same at Shilin. We had a Montagnard camp down the road, or village down the road, and they got visited a few times by the VC.
well, I was told that one of the 3 months I was there, and then I got some intel that the local force had left and had left to the north. So I called in an artillery strike for the area just north of the rubber plantation, and it was denied. So I called in it again, it was denied. And finally, somebody explained to me that the local district chief said there will be no artillery anywhere around the rubber plantations. And that was the reason for it. So I don't know if any of you knew that, but that's what I was told.
Yeah, they were touchy about rubber plantations. And researching this slang book, I found that I always heard that you had to pay the Vietnamese for if we killed a rubber tree. And doing research, I found out that's true. We paid them to the plantation. We paid them $200 for each rubber tree that was destroyed. And I'm sure they had separate deals between the different plantations. Like the big plantation up by the B team up in Long Bend or Ben Long was Terra Rouge, Red Earth. And they had some deals with the VC. I think they even provided them VC troops to help the harvest.
Oh.
Again, just a rumor.
That VC invasion of the village left me with a lifelong impression of the RFPF troops. We got, it was late night, early morning, we got intel that the VC had moved into that village. So we put a unit together and we went out on foot and went tactical on that village. And when we got there, there was no VC, but the RFPF was providing perimeter security around that village. And none of those outposts had any RFPF in it. The only thing left there was their rifles. And then later on, they were going to convert my camp into an RFPF camp, and
that was
Minton. I was disappointed to hear that.
That was Minton, right?
That was Minton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a plan. It was going to be RFPF.
When that process started, there was more politics going on in our team house than anything else. It was driving me crazy. I told Captain Callahan.
Yeah, the LLDB commander became the RFPF battalion commander. You know, they were no longer an LLDB. They transferred over to the Arvin.
I ended up probably, well, it had been my last operation. I ended up getting malaria.
Yeah.
And I got medevac to Saigon, and it was kind of a mess because I was about to deroast, and it was too early.
Yeah, you were still under treatment.
It wasn't time, but they wanted me to process out. And I eventually did to as far as Nha Trang, but I didn't want to go home yet because I was going to get off active duty to go to college, and if you had less than 5 months left, you didn't have to go back to Fort Bragg and do drills. But anyway, when I got to Nha Trang with that dilemma, Lieutenant Cancellieri gave me refuge in his BOQ quarters.
Yeah.
But I didn't see the end of Benton because of that, but I saw the beginning of it with all the MACV people and Rupp Puff and all that business.
Oh yeah, I got stuck on that too. Fortunately, I kept getting sent out on operations, and I didn't have to put up with it as much as you did. Did anybody catch malaria? Go ahead. Go ahead.
What'd you say?
Well, no, go ahead.
I spent a lot of time in the field to avoid that too. I'd take Captain Callahan's operations whenever his name came up, and my own, and so I was out a lot too. But it was it was pretty homey with the guys, you know, you get along with everybody and it's pretty nice. And then all of a sudden we had these visitors crawling all over the place and
Yeah,
it wasn't the same.
no, it wasn't. It went downhill real quick. Get those conventional troops in and they screw it up.
Was there anybody from the camp that was stayed along to work with the rough puffs? Or did the camp completely dissipate?
No, what they'd done, I don't think any of our people did, but they had those MAC-V mobile training teams.
Yeah, but and some of the
That
other
was it.
camps, some of the camp people stayed on, a radio operator or a medic might stay,
Yeah, that was probably on a case-by-case basis.
but nothing from this camp you know about.
Nothing I remember or heard of. Did anyone catch, besides malaria, did anyone catch dengue fever?
Oh.
No,
No.
Pleasure.
I did. I was still at Chi-Lin and I came down with dengue fever, which they call break bone fever because it feels like your joints are swollen and really hurt. And it's sort of like malaria, but it's non-reoccurring. You get it once and that's it.
Yeah.
I just never have run across hardly anybody that caught it. I guess I was one of the lucky ones.
Ralph, we haven't heard very much from you.
No, I yapped my jaws during our test call. Hey, I wanted to ask Dan. Dan, did you ever actually end up at Tonglishan?
That was my first assignment. When you first got in country, they'd send you through that little training camp. I guess that was at the Trang or
Yeah,
remember
the
that?
course.
And they sent me to Tonleshan, but I was only there. I'm not sure I was even there 2 months. I wasn't
So
there very
that's,
long.
I was wondering because they've got you and Freddie Myers there. And I said, I don't remember them ever being there. Because I left Minton in April and went to Tonglishan and left Tonglishan in September. I said, I don't remember those guys being there ever. So, Steve, that's my confusion over that time frame. It was in the beginning that they were there, not at the end.
You see dates that need to be changed, let me know.
What's that?
If you see dates that need to be changed, let me know.
Okay, yeah.
The first thing, before I'd ever even run an operation in country, I was at Tonleshan and we got a call on the radio. They needed some help down at the airstrip. There was a disabled helicopter coming in with 2 KIAs on it.
Uh-huh.
And I went down to the airstrip to unload those KIAs. And one of them, we carried the body into the, put him in the bag and then went back and got his head. And the second one, his head was still attached by one tendon or something. And we body bagged them both and they were door gunners. And a Huey and the Huey was going down and they both panicked and jumped. Decapitated both of them. That was my welcome to Vietnam.
Yeah.
First thing that happened, go ahead.
Well, the pilot and the second in command of that helicopter stayed in their seats and survived. Both those door gunners died.
They get hit with a rotor?
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah. They tried to stress that. Don't be jumping if you think the chopper's going down. Stay with it because the rotor will get you. And it did. I saw, that was one of the first casualties. Well, that was the first casualties I saw. Those 2 poor souls.
First casualty I saw, I was going through the cock course, you know, the COC that everybody had to go through, the combat orientation course.
What was the name of that island?
Entree.
Entree, that's right.
It is now an amusement park.
Get
with a
out.
sky rail that connects it to the mainland.
You're kidding.
Wow.
Yeah. And we were out there, we'd done our first week, and then you went out to Entree on the second week, and we had just arrived.
Right.
And there was a firefight elsewhere on the island with the graduating group. They were still on the north part of the island.
Yeah.
And what had happened, they went down to the beach, and there were some Vietnamese fishermen on the beach, scattered up and down the beach. And the instructor, who was, I think, an E8 and a Spec 4, went down on the beach to check these guys' ID cards. And one of them stepped back and pulled out a grenade. The Spec 4 was questioning the guy, and the E8 couldn't see the grenade because he was standing behind the Spec 4. The Spec 4 pushed the guy backwards, causing him to drop the grenade. And then he turned around and pushed the E8 back behind him, and he hit the water. They were standing in water or right on the edge. And it killed the VC, and it wounded the E8 severely. And the Spec 4 was, you know, wounded pretty bad, but not life-threatening. And
So the Spec
we
4
got
was
called
what?
out to be a reaction force because they thought it was going to get into something bigger. And
So
the Spec 4 got the Distinguished Service Medal.
on his training course.
Yeah. We believe in realistic training exercise.
Yeah.
So that was my introduction. And then what happened is they called us together when it was all over, and they brought a 3/4 ton truck up with a poncho in the back. And someone said, "Oh God, they're going to show us a dead American." And they pulled the poncho off, and it was a dead VC. He was just wearing swimming trunks.
Yeah.
And one of the instructors points at me and the guy standing next to it and said, somebody had already dug a 3x3x3 hole. And they pointed at me and this other guy and said, "Bury the body." And it was like right behind the mess hall for the cock course. So I said, "Okay, welcome to Vietnam."
Right. The thing that stood out about that cock course was I think it was two guys got amoebic dysentery during it.
Oh.
And we'd be walking along, and I mean, crap would just be running down their legs, and they didn't even know it. It was, I'm like, what have I got myself into here?
That happened to me too, but it was on an operation.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing. It's just non-stoppable flow.
Right.
Part of the game.
Everybody got to do it.
Yeah,
that's right. You got to go through it.
I remember somebody talking about that dysentery, and someone said, dysentery, or the craps, the most discussed subject in Vietnam. Well,
so Dan, are you in
that
touch?
happened to me and Tonlachon was we had the 1st Division had a fire base down on the airstrip, and they took some harassment fire from mortars, and there was a unexploded mortar round stuck in the PSP, and the captain that was CO of that unit heard that I was trained in EOD and wanted me to come down there and disarm that mortar round. And I'm a Spec 4 telling him basically to go to hell. I ain't touching that. And he'd argue with me. Said, "You're trained, the Army trained you, you get out the eye. The Army trained me not to do that."
Right.
And, well, especially when the fuse is buried in the ground, you can't get to it to disarm it, if you can disarm it. Yeah, I got
Yeah,
kind of made
that
the
was
demo
a-
man myself. We didn't have any engineers when I got to Chi-Lin. And I one day looking through the ammo bunker and they had all this demo gear in there, all kind, blasting caps and, det card and everything you could think of. So I went in and got the Demolitions FM that we had on our little bookshelf and loaded up a wheelbarrow and took a couple SIDs with me and went out there to that big bomb crater across the airstrip and just started blowing shit up, wiring up electric charges and blasting cap charges. And so I kind of taught myself to be the demo man. And then I told the COs, Captain Sittler, that I want hazardous duty pay for demo. Can't do it because it's not your MOS. I said, then why am I doing it? Does anybody remember
Yeah.
Sittler? Well, that's for Chi-Lin.
Did he
I
become
was kind of hoping Sergeant Grondin would be on this, but I guess he's deceased. Anybody remember Sergeant Grondin?
No.
What did he do?
Como. Radio man.
Joe,
No, I
Joe,
don't remember him.
yeah, he is deceased.
Yeah.
He would have
Yeah,
been
your
there.
list had him and Billy Bates and Boxy Carter, all deceased, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Ralph, who was with you as radio operator? You?
Well, I must be getting really old really fast suddenly because I don't remember who it was because I hear all these names and I go, oh yeah, I remember him. And then all of a sudden, there was somebody else.
Well, Grondin was there, and you came in. There was Hannaford and Grondin, and you came in there, and then there's nobody. I don't have any other name as a radio operator.
Yeah. I'm trying to look at the list of guys that were there that were radio operators, and I don't remember any of them.
Well,
but I know I wasn't the only one there.
There's nobody there in 1970 that I can find. So that first 4 months in 1970
Shows you how hard the job was. One guy could do it.
Yeah, hey, guys, I'm sorry. I gotta jump off. I gotta help my wife drive a couple hours here. Steve,
Okay.
I'll try to be on at 4. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Glad you came
All
aboard.
right.
We'll see
Take
you later.
care.
Yeah.
Take care.
You want me to drive for a while?
we didn't hear a lot from you, Frank.
Did you hang up yet?
We haven't heard much from you.
No, I'm listening and reminiscing to what the guys are saying.
Well,
The one commo guy that I believe was a commo guy was a tall redheaded guy by the name of Wilson, was it?
Wilson, he I can't remember. I don't think he was at Chi-Lin. Was he, Steve?
No, he was at Minton.
Yeah.
Correct.
I remember
And-
him, and we worked together when I was a scenario writer at Joint Readiness Training Center
Really?
at Fort Chaffee. He came up and applied for a job as a scenario writer, and I was sitting there at my desk working, and he was talking to our section chief, and I look over and we look at each other and recognize each other. And he worked for us for about a year there at Fort Chaffee, Arkansas. And I think he lived, because we were right across the border from Oklahoma. And I think he actually lived in Oklahoma. And then he went on
Yeah,
to get,
I know
he was trying to get, or he had a college degree or was trying to get one. I can't remember.
Yeah.
And that was the last I saw of him.
He was from the north, like maybe it was, I don't know if it was from the Detroit area or something like that, but he worked in a steel mill before he went in the Army. But I didn't think he was a commo guy. I thought he was something else.
Wilson?
Because
thought
he's the
Wilson was
one that
commo.
came in and told me the night that they came to get me to go. Well, he may have been. He may have been, but that's why I say, you know, I remember guys' names, but I don't remember what they did, to be honest with you.
Charles D. Wilson, who was in E5.
Yeah.
769 to 770 at C3, but I didn't know what he did or where he was.
Well, that must have been him then. I mean, he must have been a commo, because I remember him being kind of tall, maybe 6'1",
Yeah, he was tall.
6'2". Yeah,
Yeah, he
and
was
red
tall.
hair.
Red-headed
Yeah.
and raw boned, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah, I remember he was almost as tall as me. I'm
Yeah.
6'4". And
Thank you.
he was pretty tall. He was one of the tallest guys in the team besides myself.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, when I first saw you today, I said, Rotman. I said, I remember Rotman being a lot bigger than that. You don't look as tall when you're sitting down,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Well, I was skinny as could be. I weighed 155 when I went to Vietnam, and I weighed 135 when I came back. And like I said, I was 6'4". So my
question.
mother's first words when she saw me, they picked me up at the airport when I came back, and her first words were,
Yeah.
I have a question for Frank.
Yes,
Were you a lieutenant there?
yes, I was.
Were you ever the pay officer?
Yes, I was.
I did that too. And
but does he owe you money?
No, I just used to enjoy, the SIDS would come in and it would be, what do they make? About $30 a month, something like that?
$35, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that.
Well, these kids would come in about age 18 or 19 and they would all have 10 dependents.
Yeah.
So okay, I would
Yeah, that
ask them
was-
if I could come down and see their family. And their family was always in Saigon, I guess. So I just kind of wonder if you remember doing that. I used to
Yeah.
have fun with that.
Yeah, they had some ghosts on the payroll that
Yeah.
apparently kicked back to the
LL.
the South Vietnamese commander there. I remember it was probably in January or somewhere around there that we had an issue in camp over pay, and I don't know who it was, but they actually had put somebody up on a bunker, one of our guys, with a machine gun in case shit got out of hand. But you know, I don't. That was just doing business every day, I guess.
Yeah.
We did that once on one payday. We had
Okay.
somebody on top of a bunker with a
Right.
grease gun.
Yep.
And but that was at Chilean.
No, we had that happen at Minton. And then I remember also we got a communication back in early 70, something to do with, you guys had talked about it earlier, the commercial rhyme, having their own organization. And they were wanting us to do inventory on grenades and whatnot to make sure that what went out came back in.
Yeah.
Unless there had been a contact.
Yeah.
Because there was stashing of ammo that they were going to use, whatever. But
Yeah, well, I remember that too. Grenades and claymores is what they were
Yes.
concerned about.
right.
Bada boots.
I'm glad to see you, Danny. You took me out.
Reissue a lot of bada boots.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
took me out on my first operation. And
Yeah.
I remember my old man telling me when he put me on the airplane, he says, find yourself a good sergeant and listen to what he has to say.
So why didn't you?
That happened to be him.
Yeah.
That
So what
was
changed your mind?
I've been wondering about you for 50 some years, Lieutenant. Wondering if you made a career out of the Army.
No, I didn't. I had I got medevaced out of Vietnam. I came down in my 11th month with hepatitis. And they sent me to Cam Bay, and from there I went to Yokota, Japan, and then Valley Forge Hospital in Pennsylvania.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then ended up at where my old man was stationed at West Point, New York, in the hospital there.
Yeah.
And when I got out of the hospital in December, I believe it was, of 70, I went to the 10th group up at Fort Devens, Mass.
Yeah, I was there. Yeah.
Were you there?
I was there, yeah.
Yeah, and I had an A team there, and that's how I finished out my time.
How long were you in Fort Devens?
I was at Devens for a year and a half, almost 2 years.
To where? Were you there in April of 1972?
Yes, yes. I got, as a matter of fact, that's when I got discharged in April of 72.
Did you?
In April of 72, they sent over a 4-man TDY team from the 10th group, headed by a captain by the name of Mac Gwynn. Does that ring a bell?
That sounds familiar. Yes.
What company were you in?
I was in B Company.
Yeah, I think this was D Company. I think.
Yeah.
Mac Gwynn, Charles Gibson, Louis Trujillo, and I think Ira Horton went to Vietnam. That was the response to the April offensive.
Oh, okay.
And three of them are dead. Mac Gwynn won't talk to me. You don't know anything about that TDY?
No, I don't know. No, I don't. That I don't know.
If you think of anybody around from that time who might know anything, I talked to was Sepantis, the chaplain from that time.
Up at Devens. Yeah.
Yeah. And he remembers having to deal with Gibson's family when he was killed, but he doesn't remember specifics about the TDY. But that to me is one of the most interesting incidents in the Vietnam War, because they sent 4 guys over there to stop the offensive.
Wow.
4 SF guys.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, and the 10th group was geared toward Eastern Europe.
Yeah, but these guys had worked at Hurlbut Field with offset beacon bombing. They could communicate to C-130, which would in turn communicate to the B-52s. And their sole mission, one was on each of the axes of advance. And their mission was to coordinate with arc lights and handle the targeting.
Yeah, yeah.
They did a very good job, because the enemy came in with 500 tanks, left without them.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Frank, I was just looking, I had to look at my DD-214, but I was in Charlie Company at Fort Devens.
Yeah, but you left in 71.
I left there in 71, yeah.
You left in 71, okay. And I left in April of 72.
Yeah, I left, is November of 71. Or
Did
September.
you get to partake in the winter warfare training up there in
Yes,
Maine?
sir.
My
It was
God.
the coldest time of my entire life.
Exactly. I was up there in January 71. It was 54 below zero at Baxter State Park.
Yeah.
You know, unbelievably cold. But we bivouacked for 2 weeks out there.
Did you stay at the Army, at the National Guard Armory? Where were you in?
No, we didn't stay in the Army. The B team was in the Armory. We were out in the field.
Okay.
And when we would come in, it was in Rumsford, Maine. is where
Where?
the Rumsford, Maine. That's where the armory was.
Okay, we were in Bangor.
Yeah, Bangor is the
Yeah,
capital.
we were
of
in
the state.
Bangor, Maine. Yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, I was on a B team there.
I'm surprised I didn't
But yeah,
run
that
into-
was cold.
Oh, unbelievable.
It-
You know,
we-
try
We
taking
went
a,
out for our, what's that?
you went on a what?
We went out on, the armory was gonna be closed because they had to use it. So we went out into the White Mountains, and we're out in this open area, we see these little bumps. And we go, what the hell are those? So we started digging, they were picnic benches that were covered with snow. And there had to be like 5-6 feet of snow with little bumps where the benches were.
Were,
So
yeah.
we dug under the benches, and that's where we slept at night,
Oh, yeah, I believe it.
under the park benches, under the picnic bench.
Picnic table. We did a lot
Yeah,
of
it was
training.
cold.
We did a lot of training in the White Mountains in New Hampshire too. I don't know if you ever got up there.
Yeah. That's where this was. It was, and we came, yeah, we came, where you guys headed? We said, well, we were up in the, wherever it was.
Yeah, you're coming in broken up.
You didn't, weren't out there at night, 42 below zero. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
cold.
Very cold. Yeah. Yeah, I'm surprised I didn't run into you up there.
But
You may have.
we may have, that's right.
Yeah.
We may have. My memories are so good.
Well, I remember when I came back to the armory to be debriefed, they didn't want to be around us. We stank so bad,
Yeah.
Didn't have a bath for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad
In
to
fact,
see every.
A friend of mine married a girl from Portland.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that he met during that field trip.
Yeah, I ended up marrying a woman up in New England myself, many years ago.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I
You
was
know where
glad to.
Denmark is?
The what?
Denmark, Maine?
No, never been there. No.
That's where my wife was born.
Oh, okay. No, I've never been there.
Yeah.
I live in Pennsylvania now. I'm about an hour north of Philadelphia.
Oh, whereabouts?
In a town called Egypt, of all places. It's north
Egypt,
of
yeah, I know that. I lived in Philly for 28 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was born and raised in San Francisco area, but then after I got out, I ended up in Philadelphia, and I stayed there for 28 years. Went to school at the Sound.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
And,
well, the largest town near me is Allentown, so you'd be familiar
Right.
with. Yeah.
Yep.
So, no, it's a small world.
Yeah.
I'm trying to, I looked through my album. I don't have any pictures of you. And I'm just, you were the radio operator there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when Tom LaShawn went through that mess, they came and got me on a chopper and took me over to Tom LaShawn.
I don't know, Danny, do you remember we did an operation with Tom LaShawn?
Yeah,
And
yeah, it was kind of dicey. Captain Brown was there then.
yeah, and didn't he? Well, I heard that he got hit on the airstrip there, their chopper pad. I guess they got mortared one night. And he got wounded, and there were two brothers. They were twins, I believe, and they were redheads. And one of them got killed on the helipad there. I have a picture of one of the guys, but I often thought about it. I had a buddy of mine that was a lieutenant up there, Tommy Brown. Lieutenant Brown was a Tom LaShawn, but I believe you and I ran an operation out in conjunction with them.
Yes, that's a fact. I remember that.
Yeah, because I
And
think
I remember that we had specific orders not to cross the river into Cambodia, but we had them on the run, and Captain Brown never even slowed down.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, that's right. Yep. But
So are you guys in touch with any other people here today?
no,
No, not really.
no.
You know, Gordon, I was talking to my wife after our test call, and we're going to be bicycling at some big park in Houston in a week and a half.
Oh,
Call us both up.
I will. Maybe we can hook up and have a drink together or something.
yeah, that'd be cool. I live way out northwest, but I mean, depending on which park it is, you don't know the name of it?
I was just, she's out feeding the goats right now, so I was going to ask her the name of it.
They do a lot of bike riding at what's called Memorial Park. And that's,
Is it a good sized area?
oh yeah, it's, if that's the one,
Yeah.
they do a number of bike. I mean, they have a bicycle marathon in every February. They've got a number of bike trails and stuff. So I wouldn't second guess on where this would be.
Right. Well, Steve, you have Gordon's
Right.
contact info.
Yeah, and you have it as well on the email on this thing. You have his email address.
Okay. What I was going to say is when we get out there, because we're headed to San Antonio, but at some point I'll give you a buzz.
Yeah, call in a day or two in advance so we can
Yep.
arrange the timing.
Yep.
Gordon and I usually get together at some point during the month.
Oh, okay. Well,
So-
that'd be perfect then.
We'll see what it is.
You know what dates you're going to be?
I don't, because to be quite honest with you, we're not on a, schedule.
Well,
Being
there.
very retired for the last 8 years. We're leaving June 7th, I believe. So it'll be after that, probably around the 10th or 11th, somewhere in there.
Be prepared for heat.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I
humidity.
know.
High
It'll be all
humidity.
right.
Yeah.
I've
That's
got a
what they
question
put air
for
conditioning in the car for.
Yeah.
Steve. I've got a question.
Yes.
Do you know whatever, if he's still alive, Doc Myers?
Yeah,
Fred Myers.
Freddie Myers.
Medic.
Freddie Myers, yes.
Yeah.
He should be on the email list. Let's see. Yeah, his email is right there on the list.
Okay. All right.
I talked to him within the month.
Frank, now were you at Minton when Freddie was there?
Yes. Yes.
You were.
Yep. I was there when Freddie was there. Yeah, I came in November of '69 and left in March of '70.
And you and I were there at the same time.
Yeah, now that I think back, I can picture what you looked like back then. I mean, you had a full head of hair, obviously black hair.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah,
And,
yeah.
And you were slight of build, as I recall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, I have that's right. Okay. Because I was thinking, I said, I don't remember, but like I said, I don't have a picture of you back then. And the name just is very in my brain, but I don't recognize you.
Yes, yes. I don't.
Lieutenant Cancellieri had a full head of hair in those days also.
Yeah, I'll bet he did. And,
Yeah.
and no beard,
Yeah,
right?
and it wasn't white either.
And no, yeah, you're right. No, I got a lot of pictures of you, Dan.
Uh-oh.
I'm looking at them. I'm looking at them now.
I wouldn't know where it is, and maybe that's just as well, but I've got one picture of you I wouldn't share with anybody but you.
I'm looking at you. You must have made E5 at some point in time.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, because I see the stripes on your. Yeah. And I got Rodman. We're in a rubber plantation. He's sitting on that 3/4 ton that we had the 30 cal mounted on.
Yeah. There's
And
a couple versions of that picture floating around from different angles.
yeah, and I have a picture of Sergeant First Class Bates with that Russian 50 cal. Remember, it was mounted out. It was mounted in the courtyard, so to speak, by the team house.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't remember that.
And it was on a tripod. So yeah, and there's the ass end of a German Shepherd there.
Yeah.
So that must have been the team dog. But
it must have been Pussy.
Yeah, it must have been. And then there was we had a little yard, a little mott yard. They called him Hole in the Head. Do you remember that? He was on the combat recon platoon. He was a pretty good guy.
You have any of those pictures scanned in your computer?
No, not in my computer. I have them here, and I got a picture of Charlie Norton. And Dan, there's a picture of you in a Jeep with the two girls from the camp there. I forget, and you're drinking a beer.
Kim and Freddie. Those girls were Kim and Freddie.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, we were on the airstrip there.
Is there anybody who was demo after torn out? I don't have any name there.
Say again?
Anybody who was an engineer after torn out? When he left, he's the last guy I have that was an engineer.
Well, that was my primary training at Fort Bragg, and then we went through that O&I deal. After phase 2.
Assistant. Maybe I have you slotted as an assistant intel.
Yeah, but my specialty prior to that post phase 2 training in O&I was a combat engineer.
So maybe they just figured they had the slot filled while you were at the camp. They didn't have anybody else.
What happened with that was they decided they needed another intel guy, and they needed 2 CAPO, psychological operations, civil affairs people. So what they did, from sometime in '69, they increased the Vietnam A-team authorization to 14 men. And what
Right.
they did was they took engineer guys because they apparently didn't need them as much as others. And they sent them through the O&I course to be this assistant intelligence sergeant and the capo NCO. And then they also had a capo lieutenant. So that's what happened. And that, I think that happened to Wilson too. I may be wrong.
Wilson was
That
definitely.
was an intentional deal. That was a plan, you know, by the TOE for an A-team that increased to 14 men. And they added 2 O&I NCOs. One is assistant intel and one is the capo NCO.
Well, that would be a 15-man increase unless they dump one of the engineers. But you got.
Yeah, that's why I think that's what they did. One of the engineer slots became the assistant intel.
Okay.
I don't know about other camps, but I never saw a day we had 14 Americans in Minton.
Well, I mean, that was
Yeah.
paper.
Oh,
You know, yeah, we were at Chi-Lin, we were doing good if we had 10.
I agree with you, Dan. I thought there were like 7 or 8 of us.
Yeah, but again,
Yeah,
TOE
if
called
we had
for,
10, that was a lot. We were usually
Yeah.
8 to
Yeah.
10.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I said, was that we were doing good at Chi-Lin with 10 people.
Yeah.
Now look, let's look at the camp here just before it closed. Okay, Falls had moved up possibly to replace Callahan as a CO.
I remember Falls.
And Pierce was the XO. And then Cancellieri, Frank, you were the capo officer there.
Capo, right.
I don't know that you have a capo NCO at the time.
No, I don't
Charlie
remember.
Norton was in fact the team sergeant.
Right.
Right.
And Dan Courtney was the assistant intel, but Bates left about a month before. So really, you had 2 intel people there in 1970, the beginning of 70. Okay, you have Rotman and McFadden there at the end for the weapons, light and heavy weapons.
Right.
You have Charlie Wilson and Langello as radio operators,
Right.
and you had McCann and Myers as medics.
Right.
So
Right.
with the exception of demo, where we have the assistant intel, you got the proper slot everywhere. You don't have a capo officer. You don't have 2 demo people, and you have assistant intel. So really, probably missing 1 demo person and a capo NCO. But you really had a 12-man contingent there as the end approached. And I'm pretty sure Charles Wilson is the right name over there. The name's too common for me to find without any assistance from somebody else, but I will track him down in the next few days.
Okay.
So how many
So
people?
about 10 years after I was out of the service, my wife's church kind of adopted some Vietnamese refugees that could not speak any English. And I was 10 years removed from Vietnam and was asked to be an interpreter. That was a struggle.
I bet.
I never did know much more than just the bare basics, just to communicate. And right now, today, I might be able to tell you hi, hello, or Didi Mao or something, but count to 10 maybe. But is anybody proficient in the Vietnamese language these days?
You know,
Guess not.
my next door neighbor, their whole, she is Vietnamese, he is an American, but they speak Vietnamese in the house.
Oh, yeah, that's
Oh, yeah,
anyone with a third language.
yeah.
My wife is Vietnamese. I can understand pretty much what she says,
Uh-huh.
but my Vietnamese is so poor. She tells me it hurts my ears when it hurts her.
You speak.
You buku dicky dow, GI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I
Yeah.
first got to Vietnam, I walked next door from our team house to the Vietnamese captain's team house and area. When I walked over there, he had his child with him, and the child was probably only, like 4 or 5 years old, 6 years old. And the kid looked at me and he said one word in Vietnamese, and I can't remember what it was, but I remembered back then. So I went over and paid my, courtesy call to the captain. And I remembered the word. And about a month later, after I'd gotten to know the interpreters pretty well, I asked the interpreter what that word meant. And he said, it means barbarian. So
Yeah.
Moi. Moi.
yeah, I can't remember the word, but that's what we were looked upon as barbarians.
Same word they use for the Montagnards.
Yeah.
Savages. Bill, I sent you some material a while back. Did you get that?
Trying to remember.
That was the Annex A to the history. I did send that to you, right?
No, I don't think so. I don't remember getting that.
No, that was Skip. That was Skip George. So that's a different one. No.
You were all talking about Mr. Trang, the mortar platoon commander and interpreter. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah, I remember him well.
Well, my second operation, I was going out with Al Terrazas, the commo sergeant, and Mr. Trang invited myself and Al over for dinner the night before we left. So, it was about a 20-meter walk over there. And we sat down for dinner, and he had his guy cooking. And the first plate of food that we had was almost raw pork. Well, as Americans, we don't eat that. But I remember my special forces training. In fact, we had a class on eating food from the indigenous people. So we just sucked it up, and we ate that almost raw pork, and just only a few pieces of it. We sit down and have a drink or something. Then a few minutes later, they'd come in and there'd be more pork, and it was more well done. So we had probably 5 or 6 different servings of pork, but every serving was more and more well done. But anyway, when you mentioned Mr. Trang, that's what I remember was that dinner that he invited us to.
Does anybody at Minton remember the tank that was captured?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a picture of me on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was quite a story. They think it was hijacked during the Tet Offensive and hidden, and then they took it up Highway 1, Thunder Road that went up to Long Bend, and they think that the NVA wore ARVN uniforms and just drove the tank on up the highway in broad daylight. And they found it in a pit in one of the rubber plantations outside of
Johnny Depp won. Oh,
outside of
Johnny Depp won.
Minton, and they buried it in a pit, and it was all camouflaged, and they had
Houston.
booby traps all over it. They had to call in
Buffalo
demo people to get rid of the booby traps.
Yeah, that's the author.
Buffalo Bayou.
Unmute yourself, Ralph. I just muted you. At the bottom of the screen, click the
Yeah, I got it. I got it. I was just asking.
Buffalo Bayou. I don't know what part of Buffalo Bayou you'll be on, but it's 2 miles north of me here, but it goes all the way across Houston and
Oh, okay.
a bunch of other.
Yeah, that's what I was asking about. The Buffalo Bayou is where we'll be.
Yeah, I don't know where the bike trail is.
Yeah, but I mean, Buffalo Bayou is, winds all over Houston. It's hard to say where, you can't say it's on a bike trail on Buffalo Bayou because they can be 20 miles apart.
No, nobody worries about distances in Houston. You can travel for an hour from one side of Houston.
Yeah.
And still be in Houston.
And we do it on a regular basis.
Anyway, Minton, I understand. I wasn't there when they found the tank, but Minton wanted to keep the tank, dig it in as part of the fortifications, and then made them give it back to the Arvin.
Yeah, I remember that. I never did see the tank. I wasn't there, but on the operation or anything, but it was is a decommissioned U.S. military tank or
yeah, it was
obsolete or whatever term U.S. tank, wasn't
yeah,
it?
it was an M41 A3, what they call the Walker Bulldog, light tank with a 76 millimeter gun. It wasn't
that's the one that's was in the camp.
Well, they didn't let them keep it. They found it somewhere in their AO in a big
Well, there
pit.
was a tank. There was a tank at Minton.
Well, they may have taken it there temporarily.
Okay, because I have a picture of me sitting on it.
Yeah.
There was
Yeah,
a
I
tank
think they
at
just
Loch
left it there
Man.
because they made him give it up.
There was a tank at Loch Man.
Yeah, there was a tank at Loch Nin that they kept.
Yeah, no, this wasn't Loch Nin. In fact, I was never at Loch Nin.
No, I'm pretty sure that's what the situation was. They were just holding it there until they could come and get it. Probably brought a tank retriever.
Wasn't there a cache of weapons and ammo and ordnance nearby that tank and a network?
All I know is that it was booby trapped and that the 76 millimeter gun ammo was still in it, but it had a 50 caliber and 230 calibers, and they had taken the machine guns and all the ammo out of it. And they just left the tank with the main gun ammo. And then that was, like I said, that was given back to the Arvin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't ever remember it being in Minton.
Well, that would have been sometime in '69. I think early '69.
Right.
I think they got an article about it in, Steve's Green Beret magazine reprint. I think there's an article about it. That'd give you the date and everything.
We have to look that up. I'll find that picture.
I think that's what he's doing is looking through the magazine right now. Yeah, that was popular. There were a number of camps that had an old tank of some kind.
Yeah.
Steve's Green Beret magazine, while he's looking at, he said the first volume was not a complete 12 issue year. So what he did was he put the index in the first volume to give it space. And what was it, Steve? 5 editors for Green Beret magazine?
Quite a few of them, but I had them all.
He had a letter from the actual editor for each year, or whatever they spent in Vietnam, telling how they got recruited or shanghaied into being the editor, because none of them wanted to be an editor of a magazine. I'm a Green Beret. I came to Vietnam to kick butt, and they make him a magazine editor. One of them was Jim Morris, that was an editor for Soldier of Fortune magazine later on.
The article here in November of '67
67. I thought it was
It was
later.
not a tank. They're about immunizing water buffaloes. And Sergeant Richard Bell was the medic at Minton.
Who's
And
my friend.
apparently they had some problems with animals dying. Eight of the water buffaloes died, so they called in the
Vets.
veterinarians, and that was this story, not a tank story. An earlier story was I'll look at that while you guys continue. 7.
So Dan, what have you been doing in the last 50 years to keep yourself busy?
Most of those years I was building power lines. I retired a little early. I live down in southeast Oregon now in the desert. My dad was down here living alone and needing help, and I'd about had enough line work.
Yeah.
And so I retired early to come down here and give him a hand. And my wife, which is my second wife, had a home down here that her and her first husband had built before he died of cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And so here we are.
Cool.
We are isolated from the crazy half of the state.
Yeah.
Over on the west side of the state, and we're surrounded by cattle ranches. We ourselves are just we are sitting on 40 acres of rocks. We are free help whenever our family and friends need help with the cattle business.
They bring them over.
Yeah, we got a couple horses out here, and it's only a half hour to the timber from where we live, and we spend a lot of time in the mountains and spend an awful lot of time chasing my 3 grandkids that also live in this county.
Gotcha.
So life's good, except for the price of fuel.
Oh my God.
Yeah, let's not even talk about that.
Well, you know, South Carolina has one of the lowest state taxes in the country. And I paid $4.09 a gallon yesterday. I have a Ram 1500, so it cost me right at $100 to fill up. Drove about maybe 5 miles, and the price of gas was $4.40, 4 miles away. So I'm glad it, got it when I did. But what does it run in Houston?
I had to use premium on my car.
Oh.
Fill it up when it's half a tank, and that's $50 right there, even with a discount.
There we go.
Half a tank is $50. That's just under, or just under 10 gallons or something.
Yeah.
It costs us. We got SUVs, and it costs us $100 to fill one.
Right.
Yeah. No, if I empty
Yeah, I just went down to the country store to fill my diesel pickup yesterday. $155 later, I had a full tank.
There you are. Jeez, oh man.
Yeah. Hey, yeah.
$5.89 or something.
That's for diesel.
Yeah.
I asked the lawyer if it would be possible to sue the DNC for the cost of gasoline, and he told me it was not going to be possible to do that.
Yeah.
But frankly, you know, they cheated. The gasoline prices went up immediately upon Biden taking office. And
And they just keep on going.
they're responsible for it. They have to pay somehow.
Well, it's not just gas, it's everything. Everything.
Yeah, but you very obviously it's gasoline. That's something everybody sees,
Right.
everybody feels. And you know, to double the price of gasoline in less than a year, they're talking about fixing the meters on gas pumps so they can show $10 a gallon gasoline.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh. Well,
Where I live, it's 50 miles to the nearest town, so it's a real issue in this county.
yeah.
This county's bigger than 4 states.
But anybody
And
who's
there's only 7,000 people that live here, so it's a long drive to anywhere from here.
unfortunately, you can't convince people, but if there's anybody who votes for a Democrat from this point on, they're responsible for the gas prices.
Yep.
Yeah.
And anybody who can vote for a Democrat paying for these gas prices is out of his mind. Really.
Absolutely.
If the guy actually won the election, that's one thing. But given what you see, that's not very likely.
Yeah. Well, here in South Carolina, I don't think a Democrat can get gas in South Carolina.
Well, right next door in Georgia, they managed to find about 500,000 votes that probably weren't true.
Yeah.
Look,
We could send a couple of A-teams into Russia, get rid of that Putin guy.
That'd be helpful.
In this other magazine, well, that's the gas prices are a local problem. These guys want to have green energy, so they figure they make us pay more money for oil. You know, we've got the oil. We worked hard for many years to get to energy independent, and right away they blow it. They spent billions, hundreds of billions of dollars on a Department of Energy whose job it was to make us energy independent. As soon as it happens, they don't fire the Department of Energy. They raise the prices again. The article here in 1967 on Minton talks about the school that they built at that time. And there are pictures here of Robert Johnson, who was the Camo guy, and Hessler, the CO, and Edwards, the team sergeant, medic by the name of Freeman, and Miss Co-Com was a health worker, and Roland Fraser was the intel sergeant. So all that stuff is in the magazine on Minton at that time, 67.
We had a reporter from Green Beret magazine from fifth Group headquarters come out to our camp to do an article. And he went on an operation. I took the operation out, and absolutely nothing happened. I mean, it was totally mundane. And we weren't doing enough neat stuff. He wanted a CIB. And he was just a Spec 4, and expected us to treat him like some kind of king because he was from the magazine. And he didn't. He wound up not doing an article. He told us, he said, "I'm not going to do an article on your all because you didn't treat me right."
Really?
Fine, hit the road,
Yeah.
Jack.
Lieutenant Cancellieri,
Yes.
are you there?
Yes, I am.
You happen to remember that major from the B team that came out and ran an operation with us, and he's
Yes.
never been in a
Yes, I do.
firefight in his life?
I
When the
have a
shit hit
picture
the
of
fan,
him
he
in.
took over the radio and started doing political speeches and motivational speeches and everything else. When when we needed artillery and air support?
Yes, I do.
We also blamed on him. He
What
was
was
trying, he
that?
was directing a gunship at night and the gunship flew into a tree
Yes.
Yep.
and killed both the crewmen.
Yes.
What was his,
And,
what was
his
that?
name?
What was his name?
Like I said, if I had my scrapbook, I do not know where that thing is, but I got a picture of him and the LLDB B team commander. And the B
He's a
team,
major.
the LLDB he was Major Long.
Yeah.
This guy was a lieutenant colonel, and I cannot think of his name. It's on the tip of my tongue.
All right, he was the CO of the B team.
Yeah,
Yes.
he was a lieutenant
Yeah.
colonel.
Yeah.
But well, that's not B30. It's B33.
B-33.
B-33, right. And all he wanted was that CIB. He wasn't around very long after
No.
we got in a firefight.
I remember Wilson had it out for him. Norton told me that he saw Wilson standing on the hillside because they were, covered with trees, but it was sparse. And the Sidge company was moving uphill.
Hello.
And he looked over at Wilson going up the hill, and Wilson was aiming at the colonel. And him and Norton got between him and the colonel and kept moving around so he wouldn't shoot the colonel. So we don't need that. We don't need that to happen.
The guy he was probably talking about was probably George Murray.
Murray, that may have been.
The next guy, the guy after Murray, was also Lieutenant Colonel by the name of Homer Lynch.
No,
I
it
think it was
wasn't
Murray.
him.
Yeah,
Pretty sure it was Murray.
Murray's
Murray
son.
sounds more familiar.
Yeah.
Murray's son's in contact. His father obviously did, but his son is in contact with me and is quite interested in everything that happened. But I've heard quite a few negative.
Very negative stories. He had an attitude. He chewed me out because I didn't say sir enough once.
Well, the son sent me this map. Not that I don't have enough maps of my own, but he sent me a copy of a map his father had that had all the camps in the AOs marked off.
Yeah.
That's 3 Corps?
That's George Murray's son.
Oh boy.
Yeah, but is that map of all the 3 Corps or
No,
what?
it's just for B-33.
No, it's pretty well covers all of 3 Corps.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and there are markings on it for individual camps. So, and some hand notations on it.
Well, that's a collector's
unusual
item.
Map in the series. It's a 1/250,000 map, but the way it's cut is not the normal normal map. Like usually maps aren't set up.
You want to just call and leave it on my voicemail?
Not just for the core area.
No, whatever you get.
So the other maps I have will show part of the core area and then something else. And I'll have to put several together to make up the core area. So somebody made this map in Vietnam in their map section just for the core area.
I wish I had kept my map. I had a map for the Chi Lin AO, and it was 4 map sheets. The camp was right at the junction of 4 separate map sheets.
Well,
So in the AO covered, it was almost like they just followed it around the edge, the neat lines of the map. And I didn't keep it. I put sticky acetate, combat acetate on both sides, and it was like a poncho.
Yeah.
Sittler used to tease me, and he said, "Don't open it in a high wind." But we had a cold front come through once, and it really did get cold, considering that we were used to the heat and wearing, you know, light clothes.
I showed this one earlier. This is one over 50,000 for Minton, and it's on the website. You can download it, and it prints to tabloid size.
Mm.
So this is
Almost in the center, there's a ridge. It's kind of an oval. It's real dark. It's almost in the center of what's on, at least on my screen. And I think that's where the old mansion was for the rubber plantation.
Oh, you
It
want
was down that way. Yeah, Steve, I printed off that map, but I have to get the magnifying glass out. My eyes aren't good enough to read it on 8.5 by 11.
Well, you're printing it at 25% size. Because that's
all I've got.
Well, you can print it out. Tell your printer to print it as tabloid and print it, what was the term they used? Where it prints out different sheets. You tell it what size the map is, but it prints it out in different sheets to make a tabloid size.
Not my printer.
I forget what the terminology is.
I'm retarded when it comes to electronics.
You're kidding me.
All the grandkids.
Yeah.
Bingo.
So, yeah, I may have to give more prominence to Murray's map over here. Maybe I'll tack it up on the wall. I'm making a new room over here.
Yeah, if it shows all the camp locations in 3 Corps, it's a nice piece of
well,
paperwork.
The kid was very proud of having that map, and he spent a lot of money to make a good copy and send it to me. And he bought like 3 sets of the Green Beret magazine to give to his kids.
Yeah.
So,
he is proud.
Yeah. But I have not heard positive things about Murray. I didn't tell him, but I didn't hear positive things about his father.
Yeah, it's he wasn't very highly thought of.
No, not at all.
Well, another team there, as I said, the ones who started up the camp, or the second team that was in the camp, was a guy named Donald Martin. But by the 68, 69 time frame, he was a B detachment commander, and they called him Spaceman. Well earned. So I thought he was a B-33, but I might be wrong about that.
I thought you had all the B team commanders.
I do. I just don't have them on top of my head.
Oh.
He was B-33 commander from December 67 to August 68. And the other people at 331 remembered him well and thought he had well earned the term spaceman.
Another story was there were some VC on a ridge that had little vegetation, and they got caught up there when our helicopter started flying over looking for them. So they're hiding out below these bushes. And one of the SIDS platoons was very quietly moving up the side of the ridge, and Murray was with them. And they're trying to get in real close so they could open fire on them. And the plan is that the VC would probably flee over the ridge top and down the backside of the ridge. So when when they scattered, because the Sidge was going to open up on them when they got up close, they figured they'd run over that ridge top and the choppers would make runs and cut them down on the backside of the ridge. Well, they're going up this ridge, you know, creeping up real quiet under the bushes and everything. The VC hadn't seen them. And all of a sudden you hear this pop, and Murray popped a green smoke grenade for no reason. They don't know why he did it. Nothing was happening. There was no mention of a green smoke grenade to be popped at any particular time. And the VC took off, and the choppers were making an orbit and were heading in the direction away from the ridge when the VC heard that pop and took off running and disappeared into the rubber plantation. And he acted like nothing had happened.
Well, I'm going to close down the recording of this meeting now, and then I'll turn it right back on and turn it into a meeting for
Lynn.
So if anybody has some last comment they want to make on Minton, please do so now.
Well, I'm just glad to hear from you guys.
Absolutely.
Sometimes I think that I actually do this stuff, you know, but you guys confirmed that we were actually in Vietnam doing weird stuff for fun.
Well, I'm glad to see you, Danny.
You too, Francis.
Thank you.
I'm
Glad
glad
you're doing well.
Okay, Bob, you're showing
so far
up.
so good.
You're showing up to start the A-333 meeting. Is that correct?
Ralph, I hope to see you when you come to Houston.
I'm gonna give a call.
Yeah, let's stay in touch.
Yeah,
Just get my number from Steve and
I will.
take it from
Frank,
there.
I don't know if you can see this picture, but can you see that?
It's real blurry. I mean, I can tell there's people in it, and that's about it.
Yeah,
I can see the Jeep.
I was just trying to see if the guy on the end there was Frank. Did you have dark hair?
Who?
Frank.
Yeah, let me see. Put the picture up again. Let me.
Yeah, let me, hold on.
Which end?
I can't tell. I can't tell.
Okay.
Is that the guy with civilian clothes, the white shirt, or the guy with no shirt?
Fadden.
McFadden?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is me next to him, and I think that is Leslie in the middle, but I don't know who that is on the end.
Look, you guys have shown a remarkable number of pictures there, and I hope you go take advantage of that Special Forces Photos website and put some of them up.
Thank you very much, Steve.
I gotta find them.
All right, I'm going to stop the recording and start recording for the next team. Stop.
All righty.
All right.